Humans have been cooking eggs for thousands of years, and in that time we have come up with dozens of ways to do it. Fried, boiled, scrambled, poached, steamed, cured, rolled, and buried in clay. Every method produces something completely different from the exact same ingredient. Some techniques take 30 seconds, others take several months. A scrambled egg in Paris and a century egg in Shanghai barely look like they came from the same animal. Nearly every food culture on Earth has developed its own answer to the same simple question: what is the best way to cook an egg? These are every major egg cooking style explained. Scrambled eggs. Almost every country in the world eats scrambled eggs in some form, and almost every country argues about the right way to make them. The real divide comes down to two schools separated by the Atlantic Ocean. American-style scrambled eggs are made by cracking eggs into a hot, buttered pan and stirring them quickly. The heat is high, the cooking time is short, and the result is firm, fluffy curds with dry edges that hold their shape on a plate. Diner cooks across the United States have been making them this way for over a century, fast and in large batches on flat-top griddles, and most Americans grew up eating exactly this version without ever questioning it. French-style scrambled eggs look nothing like that. The eggs go into a cold pan with butter, and the heat stays low the entire time. A cook stirs them slowly and constantly, sometimes pulling the pan on and off the burner for 10 or 15 minutes, until the curds become small, creamy, and almost custard-like with no browning at all. Auguste Escoffier, the chef who essentially wrote the rules of modern French cooking in the early 1900s, considered perfectly made scrambled eggs one of the hardest dishes to execute well. Same eggs, same butter, completely different results. The only variable is heat and patience. The French method went viral online when British chef Gordon Ramsay demonstrated it on television, pulling the pan on and off the stove while stirring constantly and finishing with a spoonful of crème fraîche. Millions of home cooks tried it, and most of them immediately went back to the fast version because the slow method requires more attention than they expected. That debate between fast and slow, firm and creamy, is still one of the most divisive topics in everyday cooking. Scrambled eggs are all about what happens in the pan, but the next style strips things down even further. Fried eggs. A fried egg seems like the simplest thing you can cook, but there are more variations than most people realize, each with its own name. Sunny side up means the egg is cracked into a hot pan with oil or butter and cooked on one side only. The white sets, while the yolk stays completely liquid, and the egg is never flipped. Over easy takes the same egg and flips it briefly, just long enough to set a thin skin over the yolk without cooking it through. Over medium cooks the yolk a bit further until it turns thick and jammy. Over hard cooks it all the way through until the yolk is fully solid. Then there is a lesser-known method called basting. Instead of flipping the egg, the cook spoons hot fat from the pan over the top, which sets the white around the yolk without ever disturbing or breaking it. The result is a smooth, glossy surface with a perfectly runny center underneath. In parts of Spain and across Latin America, fried eggs are cooked in a deep pool of olive oil at high heat. The oil bubbles up around the edges of the white, creating lacy, crispy ruffles with air pockets, while the yolk stays completely liquid in the center. The Spanish call this a huevo frito, and the texture and taste are completely different from a standard skillet fried egg cooked in a thin layer of butter. Fried eggs cook from one side. The next style cooks from every direction at once. Soft-boiled eggs. A soft-boiled egg is lowered into simmering water in its shell and cooked just long enough for the white to set while the yolk stays fluid. Timing is everything. 6.5 minutes has become something of a magic number in home cooking, producing a yolk that is set around the outer edge but still molten, deep orange, and barely flowing in the center. Pull it out 30 seconds too early, and the white is still translucent and slimy. Leave it 30 seconds too long, and the yolk loses that liquid center entirely. The key step most recipes emphasize is the ice bath. As soon as the egg comes out of the boiling water, it goes straight into a bowl of ice water, which stops the cooking immediately and prevents the residual heat inside the shell from pushing the yolk past that ideal jammy stage. But the soft-boiled egg that genuinely changed global food culture is the Japanese ajitsuke tamago, the marinated ramen egg. It starts as a soft-boiled egg, peeled while still warm, and then submerged in a mixture of soy sauce, mirin, and sometimes sake for anywhere from 4 hours to overnight. The marinade soaks through the white, turning it a translucent amber brown and giving it a salty, savory depth, while the yolk stays deep golden and just barely flowing. Ramen shops across Tokyo and Osaka refined this technique through the 1990s and 2000s, and the egg became so central to a bowl of ramen that ordering one without it can feel incomplete. The marinated ramen eggs spread worldwide through food blogs and social media, and today, the jammy, soy-stained egg shows up on rice bowls, grain salads, and avocado toast, far beyond any noodle shop. The soft-boiled egg is a matter of seconds, but the next one goes all the way in the opposite direction. Hard-boiled eggs. A hard-boiled egg is cooked in its shell until both the white and the yolk are fully set all the way through. And despite being one of the simplest things to cook, it is one of the most frustrating to peel cleanly. The reason comes down to freshness. A very fresh egg has a membrane that clings tightly to the inner surface of the shell, and when you try to peel it, chunks of white tear off, and the egg looks like the surface of the moon. Eggs that are about a week or two old develop a small air pocket between the membrane and the shell, which loosens the bond and makes peeling dramatically easier. This is why experienced cooks specifically buy eggs ahead of time when they plan to boil them. Hard-boiled eggs are also the foundation of two very different traditions on opposite sides of the world. In the West, deviled eggs have a much longer history than most people expect. Stuffed boiled eggs appear in Roman cookbooks from the 4th and 5th centuries, where yolks were mixed with spices and herbs and served at large banquets. The word deviled, meaning food prepared with mustard or strong seasoning, didn't enter English until the 1700s. In China, hard-boiled eggs are gently cracked all over their shells and then simmered for hours in a fragrant liquid of black tea, soy sauce, star anise, and cinnamon bark. The dark liquid seeps through the web of cracks during the long, slow simmer, staining the white with branching brown veins in a marbled pattern that looks almost hand-painted. The flavor is subtle, deeply aromatic, and completely unlike a plain boiled egg. If you're finding this interesting, hit subscribe. I cover food explainers like this every week. Hard-boiled eggs stay inside their shells the whole time. The next style removes the shell completely. Poached eggs. A poached egg is cracked directly into simmering water, no shell and no pan, just the egg itself cooking freely in liquid until the white wraps around a still runny yolk. It sounds simple, but poaching is the egg technique that intimidates home cooks the most. The standard advice is to add a splash of white vinegar to the water, which helps the egg white proteins coagulate faster and hold together instead of spreading into wispy threads across the pot. Creating a swirling vortex in the water before dropping the egg in is a popular trick, though many professional cooks say it is mostly theater and only works reliably with one egg at a time. The most famous poached egg dish in the world is Eggs Benedict, which appeared in New York City in the 1890s. The origin is disputed. One story involves a hungover Wall Street broker named Lemuel Benedict ordering poached eggs on toast with bacon and hollandaise at the Waldorf Hotel. Another credits a regular customer at Delmonico's restaurant. Either way, the combination of poached eggs on a toasted English muffin with hollandaise sauce became a brunch institution. What most people never realize is that very few restaurants actually poach eggs to order during a busy service. The standard kitchen method is to poach large batches in advance, transfer them into an ice bath to stop the cooking, and warm them briefly in hot water when an order comes in. The result looks identical to the customer, but the technique saves enormous time. Poaching has centuries of Western tradition behind it, but the next style brings an entirely different pan to the table: omelette. The omelette is one of the oldest and most widely varied egg dishes in the world, and the gap between a French version and an American one is enormous. A classic French omelette is cooked in butter over medium-high heat, stirred rapidly with a fork for about 30 seconds while shaking the pan, then rolled into a smooth, pale, cigar-shaped oval with no color on the outside at all. The interior stays slightly underset, almost creamy. French culinary schools use the omelette as a practical test for incoming students because it demands precise heat control, constant movement, and exact timing. Get it wrong by a few seconds, and you end up with either a browned, rubbery tube or a sloppy mess. An American diner omelet takes the opposite approach. Eggs are poured into a hot, oiled pan, left to set into a firm sheet, loaded with cheese, diced peppers, mushrooms, and ham, then folded in half. The outside is golden brown. The interior is fully cooked. It shares a name with the French version and almost nothing else. In Japan, the tradition went a third direction, with tamagoyaki, a layered rolled omelet made by pouring thin sheets of seasoned egg, one at a time, into a small rectangular pan, rolling each layer around the last as it sets. The finished product is a tight, slightly sweet roll with visible layers inside when sliced. It appears in bento boxes, on top of sushi rice, and at Japanese breakfast tables across the country. The small rectangular pan used to make it is a standard piece of cookware in most Japanese households. The omelet is one egg, one pan, one cook. The next dish throws several eggs into a shared pot of bubbling sauce, shakshuka. Shakshuka is eggs cracked directly into a simmering skillet of spiced tomatoes, peppers, onions, cumin, and paprika, then cooked gently until the whites set and the yolks stay runny. Everything is served in the same pan it was made in. The dish has deep roots across North Africa and the Middle East, with strong claims from Tunisia, Libya, and the broader region once connected by the Ottoman Empire. The word shakshuka most likely comes from an Arabic term meaning a mixture or something shaken together. Tomatoes only arrived in North Africa from the Americas in the 15 and 1600s, which means the tomato-based version people know today is a relatively recent chapter in the dish's longer history. Israeli cuisine adopted it heavily in the mid-20th century, largely through the influence of North African Jewish immigrants, who brought the recipe with them. From there, it spread to brunch menus across Europe and North America through the 2000s and 2010s, often served with crumbled feta, a drizzle of harissa, or wilted greens on top. The appeal is practical as much as it is visual. One skillet, one burner, eggs nestled into little wells in the red sauce, the whole thing arriving at the table still bubbling. It is one of the few egg dishes where the egg is not the star of the plate, but a part of something bigger. Shakshuka brings eggs and sauce together in one skillet, but the next style uses no skillet at all. Steamed eggs. Steamed egg custard is a staple across East Asia, and each country has its own version. Chinese steamed egg, known as zhengdan, is made by beating eggs with warm water or light broth, straining out any lumps, and steaming the mixture gently until it sets into a silky, trembling custard with the texture of very soft tofu. The surface should be completely smooth, with no bubbles, holes, or craters, which means the steaming temperature has to stay low and steady the entire time. Too much heat and the proteins seize up, turning the custard into a pockmarked spongy mess. Korean jeonjim follows a similar idea, but is prepared in a small stone pot called a tukbagi, which holds heat and produces a puffier, soufflé-like result that rises above the rim. Japanese chawanmushi takes it even further, placing shrimp, shiitake mushrooms, ginkgo nuts, and chicken directly into the custard before steaming, creating a savory, layered dish served in a small lidded cup. All three versions rely on one principle. The ratio of liquid to egg determines everything. Too much egg and the custard turns dense. Too much water and it refuses to set. Most recipes call for roughly 1.5 to 2 parts liquid for every 1 part beaten egg. Steamed eggs rarely show up on Western restaurant menus, but across East Asia, they are as everyday and unremarkable as scrambled eggs are in the West. In many Chinese households, steamed egg is among the first solid foods given to young children because of how gentle and easy it is to eat. Steamed eggs transform through gentle heat, but the last style on this list uses no heat at all. Century egg. The century egg, also called a preserved egg or thousand-year egg, is made by coating a raw duck or chicken egg in a paste of clay, ash, salt, quicklime, and rice hulls, then leaving it to cure for several weeks to a few months. Despite the name, no century egg has ever actually been buried for 100 years. The alkaline mixture slowly raises the pH inside the shell, transforming both the white and the yolk through chemistry rather than cooking. The white becomes a firm, translucent, dark amber jelly with a clean, faintly mineral taste. The yolk turns into a creamy, dark green paste with a rich, concentrated, intensely savory flavor. The process was developed in China several centuries ago. One origin story traces it to the Ming Dynasty in Hunan province, where a homeowner supposedly discovered naturally preserved duck eggs in a pile of slaked lime used for construction. Modern production uses a more controlled version of the same chemistry, but the result is nearly identical. To someone seeing them for the first time, century eggs look startling. The dark, translucent jelly and deep green yolk put off a lot of first-time tasters before they even try one. But the actual flavor is far milder than the appearance suggests, closer to a rich, savory aged cheese than anything spoiled. They are commonly served sliced over a warm bowl of congee, tossed with cold silken tofu and soy sauce, or eaten alongside thin slices of pickled ginger as a simple appetizer. 9 styles. Same egg every time. The only thing that changes is what you do with it. And if you want to see every chocolate explained, that video is on screen now.